welcome to Thriving Relationships with Jessica Hartley. Today we are talking all about overcoming abandonment. And on the air with me today is the lovely Korina Romeo, who is the CEO of SCV, Eco Green Clean SCV.
There we go, Eco Green Clean.
And I am so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for having me back. I'm so excited.
And most of all, thank you for coming on the air to discuss something that is so important and affects so many lives that are out there. You know, I have worked with plenty of people, and this issue comes up time and time again.
It's
you know, because
prevalent.
especially in relationship, this is something that ends up being a challenge, a wound, a struggle that keeps us held back from really being empowered and moving forward.
Absolutely.
And so it's important to me to really shed some light on this so that way we can empower ourselves and each other and be the model that we want to be for our children, and to really take on the level of ownership of our lives. Because the truth is that this trauma from abandonment is something that will keep us back. It helps. We end up playing that victim card, that victim game, because of this thinking around that trauma that we naturally step into. We start owning. We start living in fear of. We start letting it consume our thoughts and emotions. And it is very, very essential and important for us to be able to move out of that so that we can be who we want to be in the relationship, attract who we want to attract in our relationship. Or even if we're in relationship and we're, worried or insecure about that, to make sure that we don't actually create more of that in the current relationship that we're in.
Perpetuate it, yeah.
Because that is what will happen.
Absolutely.
So I just want to say thank you so much,
You're
Korina.
welcome. You're welcome. I'm happy to lend some of my feedback and experience with that. And I know it's a really prevalent topic, and a lot of us are reliving it throughout our lives. So I think it's really great that you're addressing it today.
Yeah, and we'll start with mine. But before we go there, I wanted to just say that let's talk about you a little bit. So Eco Green Clean SCV, this amazing cleaning service that has come to Santa Clarita Valley and is all about non-toxic products. I am a holistic mom. I care about that stuff. I care about what is around myself and my animals and my children.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing that I just want to give you a shout out for, okay? Because obviously I use your service and your service is amazing.
Thank you.
My husband is a Virgo. So he has really, 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 really high standards for cleanliness that sometimes a little bit more often than sometimes I don't even meet.
Right,
he really loves like this squeaky clean kind of a feeling, the fresh smell, the details. Like he'll come into the house and he'll wipe his finger along the countertops, or like even the countertop, like it'll look nice and clean, but he'll like rub his hand just to see if there's any bumps.
He does the white glove test.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So anyways, your service is it impressed my husband.
Oh, good. Thank you. I was so glad you gave us a try. We're super excited. We've been in business for 5.5 years now. I started with just a couple clients. I was actually helping a friend of mine manage her clients, and then it just evolved kind of organically and naturally, and I just realized there was a niche that needed to be filled as far as, just non-toxic cleaning service, and everybody's so health conscious, it's becoming a bigger part of our awareness, so I wanted to bring it to the Santa Clarita Valley.
And not only that, but I also want to add that allergy season.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So allergies plus toxic chemicals in our house from cleaning is a recipe for disaster.
Underrated how much it can affect your health. Yeah.
Yes.
The allergy, a lot of people are dealing with hardcore allergies this season. For 1 to 3 months at a time, and of course a lot of that's environmental, but a lot of people don't know, a lot of it's like the toxins that you're putting into your body and your environment. So myself being super naturalist in general and eating healthy, of course I want to incorporate those products into my life, so I did that a long time ago, but now exposing other people to them and introducing them into the valley, it's again, we're becoming really health conscious in general in Santa Clarita Valley's known for being super health aware, into health awareness and environmental
Yeah,
awareness.
we're starting to get
So-
known for a couple things like Santa Clarita diet.
Yeah, right. The diet, the diet, and one of the cleanest counties and all that. So it just seems natural.
No, do you know what I'm talking about? That TV show? It's called
Oh,
the Santa
no,
Clarita diet.
Oh no, I thought you were
Oh,
saying
no.
like that we just eat natural, like the natural food stores and all that.
No, there's this TV show which is like putting Santa Clarita on the map.
Oh, is
You
it?
know?
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
it's Drew Barrymore. She's like a
Yeah, I love
zombie.
her. Oh, she's a zombie.
Yeah,
Okay.
and she eats people.
Oh.
She's a realtor.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to look this
Yeah,
up.
it's
I haven't
quite-
seen it.
it's
I haven't
quite
seen
funny,
it.
yeah.
I haven't got to watch TV
Yeah,
lately.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, so trying to introduce it to the Valley more,
So-
obviously, where I'm raising my son, and I love Santa Clarita, and I love the community. So I was on the other side. I was like, we really need to just rebrand and relaunch this here. So it's been growing, doing really well. It's getting really good awareness around in the community, and people are just loving the concept, and hopefully it'll pick up and people will utilize the services. And it's just so good for the environmental impact and our health impact in general. It's almost like a no-brainer, but some people haven't been exposed to it or turned on to it yet. So just trying to bring it
I
more
think
bigger
Santa
awareness,
Clarita is definitely like we care about that stuff. We're aware of that stuff. We want the best.
Absolutely.
So,
just a matter of
absolutely.
small
The thing
lifestyle
is, though, too, we're in this valley surrounded by mountains and a lot of. We can get dust so easily in
Right.
our house.
Yeah, it is a dusty
Yeah,
valley.
and
so
it's
there's
so
that
windy.
too. So for people that like your husband, that love the super
Yes.
squeaky clean cleanliness, there's that. So we are really detailed service. So we have that going on.
Yeah.
And then we customize the cleanings, and we're very thorough, and we guarantee cleanings, and you get flowers. And
What does that mean when you guarantee cleanings?
we guarantee them in that we really get a thorough concept of what you want in your cleaning. And so they're pretty much customized, and we will really work around your needs, your current living situation, the conditions of the home. Everybody's it's such a big range of cleaning a house that's already clean or cleaning someone's house that's a little more cluttery and that type of thing. So the guarantee comes in where I just want you to be 100% happy. And if the eco cleaners leave and for any reason something wasn't addressed that we discussed that you wanted to address or anything like that, we will go over the time. We will come back and clean at no cost. So it is guaranteed in that, and we also review beforehand what your needs are. We do walkthroughs, and at the end we do a walkthrough to make sure you're satisfied. So usually it ends there. We know you're satisfied, we're happy, you're happy. But sometimes if I'm not on site or an eco cleaner leaves and I can get a call, we discussed they forgot to hit this little corner. We'll come back and do it. We want we want them to be 100% happy with the service and be content. So there's no like, I wasn't happy, because we'll come back and make you happy.
Yes.
So it's definitely
Awesome.
guaranteed. We
Awesome.
definitely have
Beautiful.
pride in our
Cool.
service, and then
Okay.
obviously the health element. So
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we wanna-
So let's move on into our amazing topic.
yes.
Okay. So I'm going to start with myself
Okay.
regarding abandonment. I was abandoned. No. I would. So my dad. I share this openly. My dad was alcoholic and abusive, and so he essentially, to me, he emotionally abandoned me. And I remember one of the things that was so crazy, and this is something that I see that a lot of people doing, but when we have a painful childhood, we are so desperate to fill the wounds of that painful childhood through that parent or through the experiences that we had, that I just was relentless and still, no matter how horrible my experience was with my father, I still wanted him desperately in my life. I still, I kept trying over and over to reach out to him, to show up at his door, I was hoping that one day he would apologize, that he would say, you know what, I'm sorry, I messed up. I wish I did better. And then all would be well.
Right.
I would
for that
I would
interaction and
forgive
connection.
him, and we would have this great relationship, and he'd be a part of my life and all of this stuff. And it's really I remember being there. And I remember one time I went to go see him. He lives far, not near where I live, but I was driving through, and so I stopped to go see him, and we had planned it, and then he just didn't show up. And that was the last straw for me. Yeah, it really
Oh, that's
hit me, you know?
heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
And
God.
then that I finally realized that I needed to just let go of that. I needed to just stop expecting that closure, expecting that hole to be filled through him
Yeah.
and needing it so desperately, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I totally can relate to that on every level. My experience of abandonment was with my son's father. And yeah, it's just so just crazy how you have this longing to have the connection or the closure or the conversation that'll give you some kind of explanation of where they were coming from the person that is actually the abuser, you know? It's
Yeah.
just, you know,
Isn't that crazy?
it's so crazy how we're actually drawn to them, you know, the person that is actually causing you the pain. That dynamic has always been super interesting to me, especially later on as the years went on, my son's growing up, and people say to me, you know, you're so blessed that he's not in your life. You should be, you know, and so we can get deeper into it, but just on that level, and you rationalize with yourself, you're like, why do I know this person's not good for me, but you're just longing for, you know, that hole in your heart to be filled or just,
Yes.
you know, spoken to at least, addressed, acknowledged, just the respect from human to human, and you just can't understand. So you're in this perpetual cycle of longing for something that is so unhealthy.
Right.
The
Yeah.
relationship.
And, you know, so to get us started, so what I want to do is kind of explore what is abandonment, where does it come from, and how do we overcome it? You know, so what I can tell, I can speak to what abandonment feels like, you know, inside of a relationship with people that I've worked with, you know. So when sometimes there's an issue of abandonment if a relationship breaks up and all of a sudden there's like no closure in why it broke up, and all of a sudden you're now there with possibly some kids that you've got to, you know, now you're on your own and you're like, I was so much to this person, you know, for years. I was so much to this person and now they just abandoned me like that. I mean, all the things that we went through, and it's like that can be so hurtful and so damaging.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
what would you say that feeling of abandonment feels like?
Well, in my scenario, I basically thought that this person, and I haven't spoken that much publicly on this, so this is a little new for me, but I've been wanting to for a while. You know that I've been wanting to work with you on this for a while, and I know you're brilliant, and we will do some healing work around this soon as well. I'm looking forward to, I'm super excited about. But my experience has just been kind of, so it's been 7 years since my son's almost 8. We were kind of, I mean, I'm going to just use the term abandoned. That's what happened when he was 1 years old. And I've gone in and out of these cycles of thinking I've done the healing, and then something will trigger it, or a life experience will re-trigger it, and then I'll be replaying it again and living the experience all over again. So I would love to know what your feedback is on kind of navigating those things. But the feeling of abandonment to me was so abrupt because I never saw it coming. So it's not like we had turmoil in our relationship or anything like that. We met, it was love at first sight. We were inseparable from the moment we met. We literally, you know, and I'm not naive. I've had long relationships, so I really thought this was the real deal. I wasn't, you know, in some fairy tale. Enough to commit and move away from Northern California to San Diego with him, to buy a property with him, and to say, get 2 puppies and say, yes, I want to be pregnant. I want to be a mother. And he was willing to give that to me. So to me, we had everything, the white picket fence, everything. And I thought it was perfect. And then towards like the pregnancy, there was some red flags there. Without getting too deep into what happened, he basically had some addictions and kind of living a double life. And I think I saw some red flags while I was pregnant, but it's just, he was really, we were so connected on every level. I never saw it coming. So it was almost like he was so hands on and so there during the entire pregnancy. And then all of a sudden he was just completely disattaching, and a series of legal things happened. He was just not on the same page with.
Okay, but what does it feel like? So now, so that happened.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
everyone has their story,
Right, okay,
of
yes,
like
of
how
going
that
deep into the
happened,
story,
you
yeah,
know. But what is left? What is the trauma?
Right.
What does it feel? What are you left with now?
Right.
But before you answer, I'm going to save it because we have to go on a quick break.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds a good idea. Hold on.
And we'll be right back, and we're going to talk about really what it feels like, what the experience of that trauma feels like, and then how it manifests in our relationships. So this is Jessica Hartley, and you're listening to Thriving Relationships. We'll be right back.
Little I Leaders is the newest preschool in the Santa Clarita Valley. At Little I Leaders, our outstanding teachers lead with intellect, perspective, and heart. That means our programs provide a warm, nurturing atmosphere to meet the unique needs of each child. We believe that play is a powerful form of learning for young children. That's why our kids have every opportunity to learn through the magic and excitement of play. Parents, schedule a tour today by calling 303-0400 or online at littleileaders.org.
Men, are you feeling tired, stressed, or just don't have the energy you used to? Did you know this could be related to decreased testosterone levels? Luckily, there's a safe, effective solution. Weeder Prime helps support healthy testosterone levels with clinically tested key ingredients. Just 2 capsules of Weeder Prime each day can help change your mood, energy, focus, body fat, and lean muscle. Feel the way you felt 10, 20, even 30 years ago. Rediscover your Prime with Weeder Prime. To find a retailer near you, visit WeederPrime.com. That's WEIDER Prime.com.
It's no secret that heavy-duty cleaning chemicals can be toxic for babies, pets, and even adults. Eco Green Clean SCV can put your worries at ease. Eco Green Clean SCV only uses organic, environmentally friendly products, reducing the risk of health issues for any age. Eco Green Cleaners uses essential oils that lend to aromatherapeutic benefits. Eco Cleaners are reliable, thorough, and all cleanings are guaranteed. Locally owned and operated by a single mom who started this organic business 5 years ago.
For more information or to book a cleaning, call 993-9136.
Coming to the Canyon, Santa Clarita on April 25th, it's the Fab Four. Oh, yeah. It's the next best thing to John, Paul, George, and Ringo. The Fab Four, the ultimate tribute to the Beatles.
Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away.
The Fab Four has stunned audiences on TV and live in concert all over the world. You'll swear you're listening to the real thing. The Fab Four, and featuring Santa Clarita's own Savannah Burrows. The Emmy Award-winning Fab Four, note-for-note live renditions of the Beatles classics. The Fab Four is the ultimate Beatles tribute band. The Fab Four and Savannah Burrows, Thursday, April 25th at the Canyon Club in the Valencia Town Center. Tickets at Ticketmaster.
Pure Birth's Pregnancy and Wellness is Santa Clarita's newest birth center, offering holistic prenatal care, water births, labor and delivery, and postpartum care. Owned and operated by California Medical Board licensed midwife Tiffany Gallo, who has been serving expected families in the SCV for over a decade. Pure Births is also a Medi-Cal birth center. If you want to experience a natural birth with the freedom to birth your way in a safe and professional environment, contact Pure Births on Tournament Road near McBean, purebirths.com.
The truth is, my marriage license didn't come with any training for success, and the constant conflict just pushed us further away. But I'm here as proof. If you've lost intimacy, you can rebuild it. If there's too much pain, you can heal it. You don't have to break up your family when it gets hard. Learn the 6 essential elements to create a successful relationship. The Legendary Love Program has been healing relationships from the brink of divorce all over Santa Clarita. Learn more at jessicahartley.com/program.
Your hometown station.
As soon as I leave my house in Saugus, I always turn on KHTS for the latest traffic updates.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Welcome back to Thriving Relationships with Jessica Hartley. So we are talking all about overcoming abandonment. And so Korina, what does that feeling feel like when you've got that trauma of it surrounding you? How does that manifest?
Well, I was rambling on about the story because it felt like that abrupt ending just led me to complete shock in my abandonment. But now that I've processed it, it's been a little while longer. It manifests itself for me personally, in social situations, where there are couples, or there was this scenario, I think I told you about it before, but I used to go to the park and just see couples together. I would be totally content in my space and time with my son. Let's go to the park, or let's go to Universal Studios. And just those moments where you would see a happy couple together, mostly when I just see a man with his child holding a baby, doing the carriage, doing something for them. Just those moments would I wouldn't even be aware of it, but they would just hit me so hard and trigger me. And I'd feel this feeling of abandonment, of just complete isolation. I just felt isolation, which is odd because my son and I are so connected, but still in that moment in time, I would just feel so alone. And just, stemming from that would come just confusion and just a strong desire that we were saying for closure with someone that's not able to give it to me or willing, So
Yeah.
the abandonment just really brings up feelings of loneliness, isolation, lack of closure, and manifests itself in other ways that I can try to control in life, but triggers come up. So I think it acts out in ways of, maybe overprotectiveness, or like a bitchiness or a jadedness that comes out in my personality. It could be from like the hardships in life, but I feel like a lot of it's derived from this scenario that's been hard for me to navigate for the last 7 years.
Yeah, and other things that I've heard as well is that, there's like a deep, deep sadness that it just like throws you into rock bottom, like to where you're in depression.
Yeah, it can spiral me into a depression if I'm not careful. I mean, I have struggled with that a lot of my life and navigated it and done a lot of spiritual work around it. But if I'm not careful and I don't do the self-care and have that self-awareness, the biggest thing for me is just really trying to not judge myself, but be self-aware. I can get triggered, and then that'll lend to another trigger, and it'll just spiral me. And it can lead me to a dark place if I don't monitor it. And
because it can. I mean, when you put yourself in that place, it's like it can feel so defeating,
right?
It can feel like, well, why me?
Exactly.
It can feel like, well, I'm so confused. What did I do wrong? Or
what could I have done
what did they
better?
do wrong? And that's where the lack of closure is so hard when you don't have it, because you want to figure out, because there's this need inside of us that wants to figure out, okay, was I wrong? Were they wrong? Were we both wrong? What happened? And how do I make sure it doesn't happen again?
Right. You don't want to relive it and replay it. So you're looking for...
And then we end up getting stuck in this sort of limbo between hope for the future, that if I have hope, then it might happen again. What if this happens again? So there's this fear of getting hurt again, right? And then on the other side, it goes into sort of a expecting the worst, and the opposite would be sort of protecting so much from the possibility of that happening again, that I just expect the worst, and then I actually perpetuate the worst.
Right.
And no matter how much I actually do want it and have hope, I actually am creating the opposite.
Right.
Because I'm so worried or in fear of that happening again.
Right. Just the law of physics, like we're always talking about. I mean, your thoughts are going to like perpetuate that cycle. So, I mean, that would be probably a question that I've had for you for a long time. It's like, since those thoughts can perpetuate that, what would be your advice that you would lend to someone like myself that's going for years now in and out of this cycle of feeling empowered and feeling like I've healed from it, and then just becoming re-submerged or immersed in it when things, like a birthday come around. His birthday's about to come around, he never gets a call on his birthday. And then these feelings come up again, and I feel like I'm fighting, like, it just the deepest, darkest parts of yourself that you're trying to heal. And, I've been wanting to ask you for a while, how would you think to navigate these time periods of going in and out of this and be in a higher, more healed space continuously, like just not be as raw with the feelings anymore.
Right. And let's go into that, because that'll be part of like how we overcome it.
Yes.
But I also want to just address where it comes from, because here's the thing is, once we can understand really where it comes from, it does give a bit of closure. It gets a bit of understanding on all, it gives you some objectivity into it.
Right.
Because when we're in that feeling of it, it's very hard to rise above it, to overcome it, you know? So we need to have that objectivity. So first of all is that this feeling that I have, no matter what it is, if it's an insecurity, if it's I'm upset because, and then you can fill in the blank, this stuff is a wound. And so things in life will sort of trigger that wound, that feeling, that pain. It's a painful place that I have inside of me that automatically puts me into fight or flight, throws me on guard, or I suppress and run away from it, right?
Yeah, those are the scenarios.
So it's like we have to understand that, okay, this is really coming from a wound. And where does my wound come from? It comes from my earlier experiences. So our wounds, even this feeling of being abandoned and all of those other feelings that come with it, came from a place where early on in childhood we felt abandoned. We felt confused. Why is this happening to me? We felt rejected. We felt not good enough. We felt like we had to prove ourselves. We, all of these things. And so what happens is in early childhood, it's sort of, we're very dependent on our environment. So we're trying to learn how to be and shape ourselves into being that so that we can survive. And so we take on this perception that something's wrong with me, or that I'm being rejected, or that this feels really crummy because I feel rejected. And then that becomes sort of solidified in our subconscious. And then as we go through life, we get more and more experiences that reinforce that original feeling. So it will show up in maybe another relationship or a key relationship, and then it might show up in a stronger or more significant relationship, or then it might show up in marriage or, other things. And it's our relationships are, one of the most beautiful vessels for our personal growth, because they will show us where our wounds are. They will trigger us in ways that we can see where our wounds are. And the point is to use that for our growth, because it is, our relationship is the vessel, and our wounds are essentially part of the windows into how we can elevate ourselves. And so in a way, it's like we can be grateful for the people that have played the part to trigger our wounds or those painful experiences that really we picked up from childhood. And I'm going to go off on a tangent on that in a second, but we picked up from childhood, and they're playing that part. And so now they're almost in this sacred space of showing us where that wound is so that I can recognize it. And when I don't recognize it and I don't use it to grow from, then it's just going to repeat itself over and over. I'll keep attracting that man into my life. I'll keep attracting from that place of that fear of abandonment again, or that fear of getting hurt again, or I'll self-perpetuate it happening again. And so that will keep happening until I actually overcome that feeling. And that's my responsibility. It has nothing to do with the person that put it there or that triggered it or anything. So then who put it there? That's the tangent I wanted to get off on. Because we pick it up in childhood, right?
I knew that it was directly related to like inner childhood wounds. I mean, we all know that we're developing the first 7 years, and I can relate it to that time period, but I just don't know what it was. But there's a direct correlation if you really look into yourself of where these traumatic experiences,
where that
the
feeling
root is.
first originated.
And I could feel it was in preschool, but I'm not sure what. So it's like the awareness is there, but how do we navigate it?
And so what I want to offer, though, is one of the things that I did while I was in university was that I took my wound. I went even past my childhood, because what I started doing was researching my family history. And not the physical history, but the emotional history, the psychological family lineage.
Like genetically.
And so what I realized is that my father, who was the one that abandoned me, was abandoned by his father.
Usually the case,
And it was like this cycle had gone on for generations.
That's so telling.
Right? So where does it start?
Right.
It reminds me of there's a Jack Johnson song that says, essentially I forget what it's called, but essentially the point of the song is that who can you blame? And it's like, who can you blame? Can can I blame my father? Can you blame your ex?
Right.
Can you blame that person? Or should I blame my grandfather or my great-grandfather, you know?
Yeah, because everyone essentially is living out their childhood, their hereditary
Yes.
traumas and their, like, the lineage and then,
And then
their childhood traumas. And even in the womb, they know, there's studies that, like, things are, like, life experiences are derived from as early as in the womb.
Yes.
And, like, the experiences that the mother had. That is.
And so we essentially end up passing on that stuff to our children because we didn't fix it ourselves.
Right.
And so then because we now have this wound, we live out and we are the model for our children, and we either perpetuate it and play it forward, or we act in the opposite extreme that we created anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's interesting to see it objectively from that angle.
Yeah.
Because then we could say, okay, well, blaming and saying that this person needs to be the one that gives us closure maybe doesn't have to be the answer anymore.
Right. And I love what you said about them actually being the source. Ultimately, they could be the source of your healing. So, like, in our highest self and our greatest awareness, we would say, this person is here, I'm thankful. Like, to have gratitude towards the person
that
hurt you
Yeah,
is, like, the
big.
highest form of evolution on, like, emotionally speaking, I think.
Right.
You know, but it takes a lot of work. But I had been in that place before where, like, I thank him for creating this child with me and giving me, like, the inner strength to grow into the woman I am, to be this person for myself and my child. And I have been there and, like, oh, I feel so bad that he's so troubled that he's not able to rise up and, you know, take responsibility. And, like, I can hold him. Maybe that's his inner child work to be doing, and he has his wounds, and why can't I just nurture that? But, it's hard to not go back and, like, get triggered and in the defensiveness of, like,
because here's the thing. So what you're talking about is now, okay, so we can objectively understand that this is where it comes from, and I can move into a place, if I really step into that, I can move into a place of compassion.
Right, compassion
for that person. Not necessarily pity, but compassion. Because then I could say, wow, they're struggling. Like, for example, I could say, wow, my dad was abandoned himself, and he was struggling, and he was doing the best that he knew. And part of that was abandoning me in the process, you know? However, it's now, instead of blaming him, I can have compassion. And then who takes responsibility? The only person that can is me.
Right.
You know? And so then that becomes, okay, so if I'm going to take responsibility for this, then I need to take ownership for the fact that this is now my wound, which takes an incredible amount of humility.
Yeah, a lot of humility and emotional maturity. It takes a
much.
lot, right? To let your guard and your pride and your ego and everything down and just live from the heart.
Yeah.
It takes a lot, especially when you're a single working mom doing 1 million hours a week. And at the end of the week, you're like, wow, it'd be nice if I had a little bit of help here, you know? Then to just remind yourself again, okay, this is my thing. It's not about him anymore. That's really what I'm dealing with, navigating throughout this whole experience.
And it's like, okay, so ownership. This is my wound. I'm gonna realize that this painful feeling that I have is for me. It's designed to uplift my experience. Right?
Yeah, when you can look at the pain as a gift. The gift, that's where the gift is, right?
Yes. And it's like, the opposite would be an expectation that we're coming here into this world, into this earth, into this life experience, and everything's just going to be perfect the whole time.
Right.
Like,
that's not very realistic.
Okay, but yeah, it's not realistic. But actually, if you don't know the struggle or you don't have that to overcome, then how can you know the joy?
Right.
How can you appreciate it?
Yeah, exactly. It's always the darkness with the light. And
Yeah.
that's where you have the most healing in those experiences.
So it's not to say that anything that my father or your ex did was okay.
Right.
We're absolutely not saying that at all. But what we are saying is that this wound that I have, or that they triggered in me, is mine to overcome. It is my responsibility, and I need to stop expecting that closure from him and expecting him to apologize or take ownership for his part. And then I have to do my part, and I have to say, okay, my part is to overcome this feeling, to overcome this insecurity that I have. And again, we all have insecurities, you know, and they'll come in randomly when we least expect them, and our ego will jump in and say, oh, you should not be doing that, or all of our expectations, and we'll want to blame, and we'll want to do all of this right making and wrong making, but none of that serves us.
Right. And I think it's like comes down to just trying to grow that strength or muscle of trying to be innermost mindful headspace when trying to navigate, just being mindful of where you're going with the thoughts, right? And just, it's tricky to always stay in that like level of self-care and mindfulness and reminding yourself all the time. But I think it becomes easier as you exercise that.
Yes. Okay, so let's get into the overcoming of it. So the first thing to recognize is that this wound is this experience of abandonment has been reinforced over time. So subconsciously, it's a thought sort of deep in my subconscious, and it's going to get triggered when I have a certain kind of experience. And the more I have those kind of experiences, the more I keep reinforcing it, actually. So in order for me to really go and heal it, I need to be able to go into that subconscious thought and change it. And something that you had said is that, how do we deal with it when it keeps coming up? How do I, in that moment, and it's like, so the first thing that we've got to do is just take space. And in that moment, you can give yourself positive affirmations. You could say, okay, what is it that I'm expecting outside of me? What is this feeling that I wish I had? And then I've turned it into an expectation where I should have it.
That's a really good way to look at it. Yeah, I see that.
And then instead of needing it outside and expecting it outside, take ownership and say, this is mine. It has nothing even to do with the person that perpetuated it. And it's my opportunity to heal. So 2 things. In that moment, take space, calm down, and give yourself the words, the feeling, the experience that you're looking for from that person or from that loss or from that trauma.
Fill your own heart with that space with love. That's a good way. I love that because I tend to get really judgmental and upset with myself too when I get triggered. I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm doing this again? No. And then like instead of giving myself the room to like self-love and nurture, I'm like, I don't need him. And like,
you go into your anger.
Anger.
Your ego pops in.
The ego pops
in.
Like, the anger's triggered, and then I'm like, screw him. Like, and I don't like to feel that feeling at all towards my son's, like the person that created my son, regardless of the fact that we have zero interaction.
Very mature.
And I do not want my son to ever sense that. And I want
because that's another thing to talk about, because that's
it's
really
a whole other topic,
hard to do.
That's
right?
been tricky.
When you've been so wounded by this person, but then you have a child, and to be able to hold a ground where you're not talking badly about this person, because this person matters so much to your son,
right,
and having a good even perception of that person would be essential for your child's well-being. But that is So, but I love also that you brought up that you start to judge yourself, and you start to here's the thing, what happens when we judge this feeling that comes in, this feeling of feeling abandoned, and this thing that comes in from time to time, we actually create more of that experience in our life.
I mean, it's like ding, it's like, the light bulb's going, that's exactly
So-
it. I'm realizing now, it's like the judgment on myself that's almost the most detrimental in this part of the process.
And
I
that's
didn't even,
why
catch that
sort of
before,
we get tied to this feeling, because we judge it as
Yeah.
wrong or bad, or I should be evolved by now, or I should be over this
Why
by
aren't you stronger?
now.
All my girlfriends telling me I don't need that toxic man in my life.
Right.
And you know all these things, but then you're still feeling the feelings. So you judge yourself, and then it can like spiral throughout the day. Then you're like,
And then the other thing that we'll do is sometimes we'll either push it away or we'll try to suppress it.
Yeah.
And you know what happens when we do
Yeah,
that?
that's definitely not good.
It brings it back full force.
Yeah, worse
We get
than ever.
more of that thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like that the pushing is energy, and it's like a pendulum. If you push on a pendulum this way, it's going to swing back with equal and the opposite direction.
Force,
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like we can't do judgment, and we can't do pushing, we can't do suppression. So if we don't do both of those things, then what's left? Well, we have to accept it. We have to love it. So we have to Not love it. See, this can be really hard for people to understand because people are like, well, if I love it, then that means it's fine. It can stay.
Right.
But that's not true. When you love something, you can set it free.
Set it free. Mm-hmm.
You know, when you say, I love you. And think about the child that first got that wound. It's like that child felt abandoned, rejected. And what would you do to that child if you were aware? You would say, come here.
Mm-hmm.
Come here.
Yes.
It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true.
Yep.
Here's who you really are. Here's what really matters. And you give it that kind of acceptance and love. And then you've given it the healing energy so that it can transmute and be set free.
Right, absolutely.
So there's two things so far. One is to take space, to calm down, not judge it, not push it or suppress it, but to really just give it that loving, nurturing energy. And then the second thing we'll talk about right after the break, and that is going to be the most, to me, the most important thing, because it's really what we do when we want to do real self-love and self-nurture for healing. We'll be right back. This is Thriving Relationships with Jessica Hartley.
If you'd like to take your business up a notch, take a look at Elite Magazine.
Linda and Mo Hafizi, owners of our Valley's two leading magazines, the Magazine of Santa Clarita and Elite.
I'm so proud of Elite. It allows your advertisement to stand out. We distribute Elite to 50,000 homes and businesses. You'll find us in 1,900 local hotel rooms.
Discover how Elite Magazine can help your business. Call 294-4444.
Superior quality is second nature to us. Just ask our advertisers.
When you feel like you're at the end of your rope, tie a knot and hold on, because a quality relationship will bring the most meaning to your life. No matter how hard it feels right now, this is your opportunity to grow every part of who you are and bring the best of what you've got to the table. No one wants to spend their life alone. Make this one count. It takes effort and dedication, but you're capable. Visit jessicahartley.com/program.
Something big is coming to Castaic.
Is it a dinosaur, Bob?
No, Blanche.
Is it the 2020 Olympics?
No.
I know. We're finally hosting the World Cup.
No, silly. They're building Castaic High.
Bob, no way.
Go visit CastaicHighProject.com. You'll get all the latest details.
What's that web address again, Bob?
CastaicHighProject.com.
Again?
CastaicHighProject.com.
Bigger than a dinosaur?
That's right. CastaicHighProject.com.
It's no secret that heavy-duty cleaning chemicals can be toxic for babies, pets, and even adults. Eco Green Clean SCV can put your worries at ease. Eco Green Clean SCV only uses organic, environmentally friendly products, reducing the risk of health issues for any age. Eco Green Cleaners uses essential oils that lend to aromatherapeutic benefits. Eco Cleaners are reliable, thorough, and all cleanings are guaranteed. Locally owned and operated by a single mom who started this organic business 5 years ago.
For more information or to book a cleaning, call 993-9136.
Pure Birth's Pregnancy and Wellness is Santa Clarita's newest birth center, offering holistic prenatal care, water births, labor and delivery, and postpartum care. Owned and operated by California Medical Board licensed midwife Tiffany Gallo, who has been serving expected families in the SCV for over a decade. Pure Births is also a Medi-Cal birth center. If you want to experience a natural birth with the freedom to birth your way in a safe and professional environment, contact Pure Births on Tournament Road near McBean, purebirths.com.
98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Welcome to Thriving Relationships with Jessica Hartley. The following is paid programming and does not necessarily reflect the opinions of KHTS or its ownership.
Welcome back to Thriving Relationships with Jessica Hartley. So we've been talking all about overcoming abandonment. We've talked about how it feels like so sad, lonely, it feels rejecting, it can spiral us into depression. And then we talked about where it comes from, childhood, but not just childhood, but also generational family pain just being passed forward over and over. We talked about how it's our responsibility to take ownership for that and to say, this is my wound, to get our humility and to say, okay, I'm going to be in charge of overcoming this wound, this pain, this experience, that if I do not, it will just keep showing up. And that is the biggest key. It's the lesson that is so important for us to finally face, because we tend to sometimes just ignore it or try to suppress it or push it away, when what we need to do is to face it and to say, okay, I need to take ownership for this. And stop trying to blame it. Stop needing something from someone else. I stop needing them to say or do the thing that I need them to say or do, so that my wound or hole gets filled.
Right.
Because that wouldn't serve me. Because that would make me more dependent on them and my outside circumstances, rather than use this situation to grow and to become more empowered and to become the author of my own experience.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest way, in my experience, to like we were saying, to lend to that is, even though, again, takes a lot of humility and like higher thinking, but just to really think about their inner child and what they probably went through, that
To
they
have
have
compassion.
to have compassion. When you have the compassion for what they went through, it really like explains why they're putting you through that. It's tricky to look at it that way, but it's so therapeutic. you
Right.
know?
And it doesn't mean that what they're doing is okay
No.
or good at all, or fine. It just means that that's what they're doing, and that has nothing to do with you. And that now I can take responsibility for my part for this painful place that I'm trying to protect myself from all the time, and actually use it for my growth. And so the biggest thing, so we talked about serving ourselves and not judging and not pushing and not suppressing, but instead just really loving it. And one of the biggest ways that we can be self-nurturing in this way is to actually go and heal that wound, which is oftentimes really hard to do yourself.
Right.
And so this is where, we need to reach out to people.
That's where you come in.
that
That's where I need you.
that can really help us
Guide
do
you.
that.
Guide you,
Yeah,
right?
because otherwise we're so into the emotion that there's not no book that we read will help us through that. We have to actually be move through action and experience where we are solidifying a new normal, a new thought, a new perception that can replace that old one. And what we need to do is go into that subconscious thought and face it. Here's the thing. We have to face the wound. And the wound has feelings and pain. And so we have to move through that pain in order to love and accept it. And then by doing that, we can meet that starting point of that wound or that perception, and then shift its orientation. Move it
completely.
move it into something that serves you, that now empowers you to help you move through your journey in a stronger way.
Which is the beauty and power of transmuting and alchemy, is like taking your deepest pain and wounds and just completely harnessing that energy into a strength, which is another practice, but very powerful.
Yes.
Very powerful.
Yeah. And so it's like being able to say, okay, well, let me take ownership for this. Let me seek help. Sometimes, especially as women, we think that we have to do everything for ourselves, and we don't ask for help when we need it.
It's just what we were talking about earlier. It's like you can maybe be a guidance to a lot of people. Like maybe a lot of people gravitate towards me for guidance, and you may be very good at that, and you may be very self-aware, but to have someone just navigate you through the process is so essential. It's so crucial. You may be a healer yourself, but even healers seek healers.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I do with my clients is we do these deep healing sessions, and we'll go in, and it's not like an hour, okay, you're done. No, we go in with the intention to change and to transmute and to do that work specifically. And we go in and we move through that emotion, we change it, we uplift it, and then a weight is lifted. Now you can move forward finally. You no longer feel shackled to that experience replaying itself over and over again.
Right. That's
And
the
then
work that I would like to
oftentimes
do.
we actually also have to reinforce it with action and new thoughts, and because that was reinforced for so many years, right? So we now have to do the opposite, of where we plant this new thought, and then we have to reinforce that over time with action and experience and feeling and thought and emotion and all of that, which is the key to evolution and to our personal growth and development, and really owning a new normal. Empowering ourselves and moving forward. And that's when we do that work that now we've elevated ourselves. So now we're no longer going to be attracting from that same place of abandonment and seeing that play over and over. So that's another thing. Like oftentimes I have to ask my clients, when are you going to make that change?
Yeah.
You know, when are you going to say enough is enough and take ownership?
Yeah.
Because we can blame all day long outside of ourselves to our spouse or the people that wounded us.
Yeah, at some point it needs to be tough love. It's like, okay, enough's enough. When are you going to take
When are
responsibility? We've already said, let's get out of
Yes.
that story. We've already told the story. Let's move out of the story.
Yeah. And that's where venting comes in, you know, which is good, telling the story, letting it go. But then there's the whole other side, which is change.
Yeah, the venting can only go on for
Growth,
so long. I've learned
transformation.
That
Yes,
Yeah.
all of that, you know. So we have to move into that in order to create the lives that we really want. And, you know, our people our challenges and everything, they're not here to hurt us. They're here to help us grow.
Yeah. And I love what you said about just feeding yourself the self-love, because ultimately, even though they've hurt us, it's like a projection within ourselves, that it's like a projection from within. It's one of our wounds that's causing that.
Okay, so if you want to reach out to me, you can call 661-347-8473, and we could do one of these deep healing sessions, or you can reach out via email, connect@jessicahartley.com.
We need to get on the calendar, girl.
So thank you so much, Korina.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was a really awesome topic.
All right. Okay. Next time, next week, 12